bless football, Mikey A.
God bless football, Mike Golic.
God bless football, Stugotz. Here we go.
Thank you, Mike. We don't know where Billy is. What happened?
Where's Billy?
I don't know. I mean, will you let me set it up? I would have set it myself. What's the matter with you?
Well, do it then.
You know what I've noticed, Mike Golic? Billy's been absent all week, and Mikey A, he's enjoying it. He's been super chatty. He's cutting people off. I mean, it's driving me nuts. I mean,
I'm going to tell you what I've noticed more.
Yeah.
That you and Mikey both a little agitated with one another or just agitated in general. It seems like this Jet season got to you more than normal. Like, you know, the Jets are going to be bad. Stu, you called this. As soon as Aaron Rodgers signed, it was just a matter of time. Little did we know it'd be 4 plays. But what this has turned into, it seems like it's even a little more of a twist of the knife than normal for you Jet fans.
It is. I'm upset about the Jets. I'm upset about the last 40 years of the Jets. I'm upset that Joe Beningo has Robert Saleh's number and I don't. And I would do exactly what Joe Beningo did if I had text conversations with Robert Saleh. I would share them all with Le Batard on air. So, I mean,
yeah, and that will be the last time that Salah texts Joe Beningo.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so. Unless he wants to push an agenda. Right. Then he will text him because knowing that Beningo will put it out there.
Well, Mike, let's start there since you brought it up. We'll get to the college football playoff in a second because you told us Florida State, undefeated Power 5 team, will never be left out of the college football playoff. And to the surprise of many, and I'm sure to you, they were left out of the college football playoff. But what'd you make of the whole Zach Wilson, the drama with the Jets? They are a terrible team, and everyone's talking about them this week. And it's never about the good stuff, Mike. It's always about stuff like this.
It's hard for me to imagine a player would say, I don't want to go on the field. Now, sometimes it depends on the status. Like, say if you're hurt, say like a Justin Jefferson. If he wanted to sit a couple of more weeks to really make sure about that hammy, there might be some fans that are a little bummed out. But you understand, Justin Jefferson is one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. Make sure he's right. Let him make sure he feels he's right. Zach Wilson's not in that position. If, in fact, he did say this to kind of dictate whether I want to go on the field. Zach Wilson's not going to be a Jet next year. While Zach Wilson was a very high pick, Zach Wilson has not been playing well. So people like that, if you go back, well, like my son Mike, when he was at Notre Dame, they go to a bowl game. He's got to play in a bowl game. He needs more tape for the NFL. If this was going on when I was at Notre Dame, I would have played in our bowl game my senior year because I always needed more tape to have the NFL look at it. Most guys do. There are the rarefied air of those that can kind of pick and choose if they want to be out on the field. And normally it's around an injury. This was basically, if in fact it was true, Zach Wilson saying, listen, I don't want to go out there and get hurt. Playing with this offense, I don't want to play. I just find it hard to believe that he would say something like that, in all honesty, because Stu and Mike, he's got to reprove himself for the next team that he's going to be on, for someone to look at him and say, I want to bring him on, in a backup role for my team. And you know what doesn't endear you to coaches is somebody who's healthy and would have said, no, I don't want to go back on the field. I just have a hard time believing he would say that.
If he did say it, Mike, that would not sit well with you. Is that what you're saying?
That would not sit well with me at all. Not one bit if he said that, being healthy. And I also think it's the right decision to go back to him. It's a line we always hear from a coach. He gives us the best chance to win. But he actually does. Yes. It's Trevor Siemian and it's Brett Ripien, right? I mean, that's because they cut Boyle. Yes. So he is, and it may not make a hell of beans of a difference. They may get smoked still, but he is their best chance. Put him back on the field and barring injury, let him finish the season.
Mike, you did tell us, and I want to get your thoughts here about the college football playoff, because I'm certain you were shocked that an undefeated Power 5 was left out of the college football playoff. I happen to listen, I applauded the committee because, Mike, you know this, growing up for me, it was the last two. If we had two undefeated teams, they would play each other in a national championship game. And this was according to the AP. This was the writers who were deciding it. Then we went to the BCS. Now we have this committee. I do think you have to factor in that Florida State is down to their third-string quarterback. I do think the committee gave us the most exciting playoff. I do think the committee gave us, you want to say they're the best four, you don't want to say they're the best four teams, fine, but there's certainly four exciting teams, great matchups, four of the best five teams in the country, let's say. And you do, and that's what the committee was brought in to do. They were brought in to factor in, hey, how healthy is your team headed into the college football playoff? And do you have a realistic chance of winning a national championship?
So first, let's get rid of it would have been a third-string quarterback. Rodemaker would have been back. You have a number of weeks, so it would have been the second-string quarterback.
They weren't great with him, Mike, either.
No, so. I know. Okay. We have one sample size in a Florida game in a rivalry game that, oh, by the way, Bama needed a Hail Mary to beat a 6-5 team. Okay. Right. Yes. So I don't want to hear it too much about he didn't play well. Bama almost got beat by a 6-5 team. They didn't, but they almost did. Okay. One of the other things I'll say is everybody says, well, that's obviously indicative of what the committee thinks of the ACC as opposed to the SEC. The ACC was 6-4 against the SEC this year. Right. 6-4. That's a winning record last I checked. Mm-hmm. Florida State, while their strength of schedule, I get it, was lower than the others, in their non-conference game, played two SEC teams on the road and beat them. I mean, and listen, the whole reason this happened, we know, because I can lay out stats like that, but the only reason they're out is because their quarterback is hurt. And the committee has it in their bylaws, whatever you want to call them, that they can determine what a team is like without a certain player, in this case, the quarterback, and what they would be like and that they wouldn't be as competitive. And I like to look at, I come at everything as a former player. I like to look at the fact that they play with a backup in a rivalry game and then with a true freshman third stringer against a committee-ranked Louisville team, not a not-ranked team, a committee-ranked Louisville team, and they won that game. Didn't look great on offense. Their defense can hang with anybody in the country, but didn't look great on offense. They'd go back to their backup quarterback, and then you hear, oh, just be a blowout in the semis. You know what? What people need to do, go look at every semifinal matchup since we started the committee. Last year was the only year both games were one scores. Every other year, either one or both semifinal games were blowouts. And that was by four teams people wanted in there. So it happens every year except last year that you would get a blowout. I think they deserve that shot, and I know that's not a word people like to hear. It shouldn't be deserved. It should be the top four teams. I understand all that, but I just have a hard time leaving a team in a power conference. By the way, again, a team that's conference record was better than the SEC's conference record in head-to-head. And by the way, this was the first year, you know, the old BCS rankings, that the computers, this every year of the new committee, you look at what the BCS rankings would have had. Every year, they had the exact same four teams, except maybe different order, except for this year. This was the only year the old BCS would have had a different team, and that different team would have been Florida State. They would have had Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and then Florida State. Me personally, Florida State would have been in, and Texas would have been in because they beat Alabama, and the SEC would have been out. But that would be unheard of to this committee. And the close-up of Greg Sankey's head, if that would have happened, exploding, would have been probably too much to bear. So
you have no SEC team in there, huh? That's interesting.
I know. I would not have had an SEC team in there. Okay. I wouldn't. It's just the way it would have fallen. I would not have kept FSU out.
All right. Let me ask both of you this. Mikey, do you agree with Golic on this, or do you think the committee got it right?
I don't. I think the committee got it right. I think everything he said is absolutely true. But as somebody who's just a fan who's going to observe the games and watch them, I didn't want to watch a backup quarterback with Florida State. I didn't want to watch it. I was going to ask Mike. Mike, I understand. Like it's hard to argue with what it is you're saying, and it's really hard to argue with any of these five teams. I guess Georgia, if you want to throw the Ohio State, there could have been 7 teams in there in the college football playoff, and next year there'll be 12. So, but I do wonder, Mike, are you more intrigued, more interested? Because there's a lot of people screaming and yelling on Florida State's behalf. Most of them, well,
Live in Tallahassee, okay?
Right.
Ron
yeah.
DeSantis,
Oh, I
Ron
understand
DeSantis
that.
is suing
Sure.
everybody. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, my
do
God.
something better, more productive with your time, please.
Completely agree. Yeah,
but I am wondering, would you be more excited for the game you're about to get, which is Michigan and Alabama, or Florida State with their backup quarterback taking on Michigan?
Listen, I understand what you're saying, but it's a game of football, and you never know. Did we think Oregon would beat Florida State 59-20 in 2015?
No.
Did we think that Alabama would beat Michigan 38-0 in 2016 in the semis? Did we think Clemson would beat Ohio State 31-0 in the semis in 2017, or Alabama would beat Washington 24-7 in that same semis? I mean, did we think that stuff was going to happen? Clemson would beat Notre Dame 30-3. I mean, as I said, every year. So now this year, the difference may have been we may see that going in, but we still don't know. We didn't expect those blowouts those years, and we still got blowouts. Maybe it would have been a blowout. Maybe it wouldn't have been a blowout. Have we seen the Florida State defense play? They're pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So maybe they help keep that offense in the game, which has two stud wide receivers and a heck of a running back as well. So I would have been, and I've heard other people say, oh, nobody would have watched. That's a bunch of, everybody would have tuned into the game. Everybody will tune into the start of these games. Now, if it turns into a blowout, of which I just mentioned right off the top of my head for some of the games in the semis, maybe you turn it off. But if Florida State was playing Michigan, you know what? There'd be a ton of people, obviously at the game, and a ton of people watching that game. If it got away from Florida State during it, they'd probably turn it off, just like they did some of these other games.
They'll stay with Alabama and Michigan a lot longer, I promise you.
Yeah, probably they may. They may, but who knows?
How about this, Mike? If Florida State beats Georgia, which is a great matchup outside of the college football playoff,
right?
They're playing down here in the Orange Bowl, I think. If Florida State beats Georgia, okay, they get the national championship, or the winner of the actual playoff then has to play Florida State for the championship. How about that?
So I heard this as well. Let's see if Florida State can beat Georgia, and then they would have a case. Well, that's a ridiculous statement because the case has already been made. They're not in the Final Four.
Right.
And anybody looking at bowl games and then maybe betting on bowl games is like betting on NFL preseason games. I have no idea what Florida State and Georgia. Do we think the best player on the field in that game would be Brock Bowers? Do we think Brock Bowers is playing in that game?
No.
I haven't heard he hasn't, but is he?
No.
Versus the edge rusher for Florida State, who is the top edge rusher looked at in the upcoming draft. I haven't heard anything. Maybe he is playing, but he may not be playing in this game. That's the thing about the outside of the playoffs. We don't know the guys who are in the transfer portal, which is over 1,100 people already. They won't be playing in the games outside of Tyler Buckner is transferring from Alabama to go back to Notre Dame to play lacrosse, by the way, which is pretty cool.
Ridiculous.
And then you have guys
Get
that
a
are,
job.
why? He could get a national title ring in football and a national title ring in lacrosse next year if Notre Dame went back to back.
I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I'll tell everybody, I'll tell your daughters, anybody, stay in college as long as you possibly can.
No, I agree. Listen, I went 5 years, Mike, but my daughter's one of the ones who's getting screwed with all these kids staying around forever. I mean,
I know. No, that is true. So I do not put a whole lot into bowl games and the results because of the transfer portal and guys that might be sitting out. So the outcome of a Florida State Georgia game means nothing to me.
I think Florida will show up and want to win that game. Florida State will show up and want to win that game more so than Georgia will. Right. I agree with that.
It just may be what players they have.
Right.
Do they have showing up on both sides?
Yes. The other thing I threw out to Le Batard, and he loved it, was I think what the committee should have done is set Florida State's defense with Texas's offense and called them Flexus State.
Wow.
Right.
Let me tell you that the Alabama-Michigan game could be an hour and 15-minute game. Right. For the running that's going to go on in that game. The Washington-Texas game, wow.
Yes.
Is that scoreboard going to be, I don't know if there's already, I'm sure there is, an over-under for it, but I'm taking the over. That scoreboard is going to get lit up. So you're going to see two different types of games between those two games.
Mike, what is the championship game? And I'll be doing Sunday Night Football. We'll get to that in just a second. What is the championship game we should be rooting for? What is the matchup we should be rooting for? Is it Alabama, Texas? Is it Michigan?
So I picked Washington at the beginning of the year to be in the Final Four. So if Washington were to make it, I would look good. So that's kind of what I want, because we all want to look good.
Right.
And what's interesting, who has been the villain the last decade of you want to see this team lose, you don't want to see them around? It's Alabama. But who's the villain this year? Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
Right? So in association, Michigan, you cheaters, you sign stealers. So you have the last two villains in college football playing against one another in Alabama and Michigan. I would like to see, listen, I know Mike, my son, hates Michigan. For me, I don't mind Michigan. As I've always said, if I didn't go to Notre Dame, I'd have gone to Michigan. My big rivalry was USC. So I would like to see a Michigan and Washington. I think a lot of college football would love to see Texas back in this thing, because how many years have we said the U is back or Texas is back? And neither has been, but Texas has been closer, and now they have a chance to be fully back and get themselves in the national championship game.
I think a lot of fans want Texas, Alabama. They want to see that region.
I agree.
Yes.
I should have answered. Go back to answer your question. I think that would be the matchup most would be excited about, would be Texas, Alabama.
How was Portal Day for you, Mike? Did you have a good day?
People were always were a little scratching in the head because December 4th you could go in the portal, but there were already 1,000 people in the portal, and people would be like, well, how does that happen? That happened because on November 26th, when the season ended, any team that lost their coach, those players could immediately go in the portal. And way more coaches than you think lose their job in college football. So there's 85 scholarship players on all those teams that could effectively leave or go in the portal if they wanted to. So that's why we have so many. And what's interesting, guys, is we have a lot of starting quarterbacks going in the portal. Some will follow their coaches to the next stop, right? And I have no problem with it. I don't have no problem with it at all. Right. But it isn't. Hell, Notre Dame will probably jump in the portal again. Look at Riley Leonard, maybe from Duke, to bring in another quarterback. Though I do like Steve Angeli. The guy's kind of been waiting in the wings, what he can do if he gets his chance. But listen, the portal is big business now. We know that. So, how quickly do teams jump into it? Because especially when you hear a player go in the portal and say, but I don't want anybody talking to me in the portal, which means they already know the team they're going to. That's already been worked out. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting time in college football. I think Riley by the way, Mike Elko is going to join me and you next week, the new Texas A&M head coach. We had him on earlier. Yes. He's very excited for it. I would think Riley Leonard might go with his coach. I have no idea, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Mike, I want to get to the NFL here. You're on the Sunday night game. You're on the Eagles and the Cowboys. And we had a legendary Dallas Cowboy on. He's actually on this episode. We spoke to him earlier this week. I think you guys had him on your show. It's Emmitt Smith. We asked him about you, Mike Golic, and I want to play it back for you. All right, so Mike Golic tackled you once. You don't really remember it. Did he ever talk to you?
No, he didn't. He wasn't on the field long enough to talk trash.
There's Billy.
Wow. What, Emmitt, man? I thought we were buds. Wow.
You thought wrong.
I hope he was just going for the cheap laugh there. That was really hurtful.
Let's break it down. Play it again, Mike. Let's see if he was going for a cheap laugh. Play it one more time, if you don't mind. Sorry, Mike. All right, so Mike Golic tackled you once. You don't really remember it. Did he ever talk to you?
No, he didn't. He wasn't on the field long enough to talk trash.
So my moment with Emmitt Smith, and I tackled him more than once, by the way.
Right.
But my moment with him, again, this is back in the 80s when we were playing, early 90s, where you could hit a little differently. So he ran a play to the outside, and I'm an interior D lineman, and it was going wide. It was really getting strung out by our guys. So by the time I got close to it, I was at full speed. It takes me, half a field to get to full speed. But he had turned the corner right by the sideline, and I am at full bore speed. Guys, I'm telling you, I did everything that would get me thrown out today. I launched, and I hit him with my head, right in the side of his head. I mean, I tried to knock his head off his body. Went flying out of bounds. And it was one of those, when I hit him, I'm like going, man, did I just crush him. This is awesome. Hit the ground. He goes flying out of bounds. I go flying out of bounds. I hit and I roll and I get up and I expect to look over and see him kind of, a pile of flesh laying there, and I'm all excited. He pops up and just runs right by me like nothing happened. It's like in that boxing ring where you hit somebody with everything you have and they just kind of turn their head a little bit and look back at you like, that all you got? I was like, damn. I'm like, so frustrating. Okay, that dude is is tough. And he was one of the toughest running backs I ever went against. But I am a little hurtful. I wasn't able to be on the interview. Just Mike interviewed him. And of course, he was very nice talking about me then. Yes. But I really see what the truth comes up when I'm not around, what the talk is about. Okay, I'll remember that.
He did. In fairness to Emmitt, Mikey A will agree with me here. He did show a great amount of respect for you, Mike Golic, after he made the joke. Okay, yeah. He was going for the joke. Okay?
That's cool. Now
he knew what I wanted, and he gave it to me. Okay,
it's amazing because that was the time when you really disliked your opponents. But I've grown to be such friends with him, Nate Newton, a guy I played against a lot, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman. I mean, a lot of those guys we've through media and seeing each other have been really good friends. So it's been pretty cool. But reliving those days has been fun.
Spoiler alert, Emmitt also says on this episode he'd take the Florida job. So
oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mike, so this Dallas-Philadelphia game is going to be interesting. You're on the call. Yeah. And just quickly here, the Eagles coming off a loss, people starting to question them. That's what we do after they lose a game. The Cowboys, this is their time. They got to get him. Dak, MVP season, playing the best he's ever played. Philadelphia is going into Dallas, being disrespected a bit as a plus 3.5 point underdog. What do you make of this game? It's going to be a fun, interesting game.
But this is how we go week to week, right? After they get smoked by San Francisco, all of a sudden we're down on them. When in the previous 3 weeks they beat the Bills, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. So those are 3 monster wins, and then they get smoked by the 49ers, just like the Cowboys did earlier in the season. But I'll say this: the Cowboys are playing better than Philadelphia right now. Yes. Their defense is humming. Their offense has been on absolute fire, scoring points, but it's a matchup within the matchup. Without getting too technical, Dallas loves to play one safety at the top called single high, one safety up there so they have another there for the run. In the first game when Philly won the game, they ran it 33 times, but only averaged a little over 3 yards, but they were able to get the carries in, which was good. But that's what Dallas loves to do. They love to play that single high, so it can be a little tougher to run on. They're first in the league in man coverage. They love playing man coverage. Oh, by the way, A.J. Brown is great against man coverage. Look for that matchup. Look for CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's the only wide receiver in the league with over 500 yards as a wide receiver and as a slot receiver. And Philly has been really susceptible in the middle of the field. They've had secondary injuries early on. They have major linebacker issues now from injuries. Look at the first game they played. Jake Ferguson, the tight end, had a big game over the middle. 7 catches, 91 yards. CeeDee Lamb had a huge game, 11 catches, 190-some yards, I think. So Philly's defense has kind of taken a turn, I think a decent amount of it because of injury. And one last feather in the cap for Dallas, their O-line, which Tyron Smith, the left tackle Hall of Famer, Zach Martin, right guard Hall of Famer, have been nicked up a little over the past couple of years. They're as healthy as they've been. Do you know who the top percentage left tackle is in the league at giving up the least amount of pressure?
Who?
Tyron Smith.
Really?
Tyron Smith. Yeah. I mean, that O-line is healthy, and that O-line is playing like the best O-line in football. Oh, by the way, and the Eagles probably have the best O-line in football. So another, great matchup for those defenses. So I think Dallas is playing better ball right now, but certainly wouldn't shock me at all Philly to win. But if Dallas does win this game, in 2 weeks, Philly will have gone from 1 loss to 3 and tied with Dallas, and Dallas would actually be in the lead in the division right now, though Philly controls the rest of the season and their destiny by the rest of their schedule.
The only reason I want Philadelphia to win is I want to see Stephen A's reaction on Monday. That's the only reason. That's it. I root for chaos, Mike.
There you go. Well, you got it in the playoffs, the college football playoffs, too, so you had to be happy about that.
Yeah, very happy about it.
just us three. What did Billy have to do today?
I have no idea. Well, all week, not just today, all week. He told Sunday. On Sunday, he told me and Mikey A, hey, on vacation this week. On Sunday.
On Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday.
That's so, like, unethical of him. I can't even believe he would do that.
I was shocked, too, to be honest with you. Funny you said that, Sims, because you have now gotten to know Billy Gill. It is so out of character for Billy, I'm not certain what to do with it. I'm like, I hope he's okay.
A bender? Did he start liking crystal meth over the weekend? What the hell happened to this guy? I just can't even believe it. I'm shocked. It seems like he's a professional with everything he does in life, except for on this show, where he's kind of amateurish.
Speaking of drugs, you brought him up, not me. Mikey A has a very good idea, I think, for you to have a separate Twitter account. I will let Mikey A take it from here, but Mikey A, go ahead.
So I heard David Carr say this week that the Eagles should consider benching Jalen Hurts in favor of Marcus Mariota. And I just had this vision of Chris Sims sitting around high as hell, coming up with all these football takes that would be fantastic as long as you weren't held accountable for them when you were sober. So like I could just see you stoned out of your mind being like, the Eagles should start Marcus Mariota. I was kind of right on Zach Wilson. Well, because, all this crazy stuff.
Right, because when Mikey A told me, Chris, I said, listen, Carr had to be stoned. And that's how he came up with the idea. Yeah. Sims should have a separate account where he's Stone Sims QB on Twitter.
Stone Sims at QB.
And you just let it fly when you're high, you know?
I can guarantee two things. First off, David Carr's definitely not high. Okay, that's for sure. All right. Second off,
just has bad
the last thing I want to do is get on social media when I take a few puffs of my stuff and the day's over. So that ain't happening. Now,
get yourself in trouble. But you're not accountable. You're stoned.
But that's the best part. You make it not like it's totally separate from your real work.
Tell people all this all the time. When I get high for that first 45 minutes, I am the smartest I can possibly be.
Same here.
And then I progressively get stupider from there, right?
Yeah.
But like a lot of the thoughts I have, things I bring up, food for thought or whatever, throughout my career have definitely been, hey, like I told you guys, day is over. Wait, let me reflect on the day. I'm smoking a little bit, and I have lots of great football thoughts and things that do come to my mind, and I don't need to say they're Stone Sims or social media. I usually say them the next day on TV or to you guys.
Same here.
All right,
I've been doing this my entire career, and for those of you who aren't aware, Sims, man, you and I are two peas in a fucking pod, I swear to God. You have that 45 to 60-minute window to get all your thoughts in, or else they're lost. They're gone because...
They're gone forever. Yes. I text my wife. I blow up my wife with football thoughts at the end of the day.
Right.
Or early evening, right?
Yes.
Because of what you just said. I'm like, damn, that's a good thought, or I'm on the right track there. Let me type it to her because I'm going to forget in another 45 minutes. I won't remember anymore, and it'll be gone forever. But there's definitely some, I don't know what it is. End of the day, relaxation, creativity, self-reflecting, all comes to your mind, and that's what happens. Now, listen, like what David Carr said, benching Jalen Hurts or Marcus Mariota is crazy. Yeah, I mean, we know that. That's crazy. I don't know what he's thinking there. I will say, I brought up some of the points that he talked about in that little video of Twitter and on the NFL channel. It's just that, and I've said it for about the last 3 weeks, Jalen Hurts is not playing his best football.
Yeah.
Even on the play Jalen Hurts got on last week, I use this as an example in my pod today. Zacchaeus, number 13, is wide open, and for some reason he runs. The pocket, a little window opens up, and he runs where I want to just go, no, stand in the pocket, shuffle up, and hit the 20-yard gain that might become a 40-yard gain. He is definitely missing some completions down the field. He's playing good. It's definitely not Marcus Mariota. Now, I do think MVP talk for Jalen Hurts, I do think that's crazy too. I do. Yeah. It's the 13th rated quarterback in football. It's a 1.9 interception to 1 interception to touchdown ratio. He's one of the league leaders in turnovers. He's one of the league leaders in sacks, and he has the best protection in football, and it's not even close. None of that translates to MVP. He's been outplayed by the quarterback he's played against for 4 weeks in a row. That does not speak to MVP. I don't understand the blind love for Jalen Hurts. I really don't. I love him. He's the man. He's handsome. He's the kind of guy I'd wanted my daughter to date. He's a really damn good football player. But when people talk about MVP, they lose me in that one right now.
In your defense, I tried to make the comment. I made the statement last week. I think he's the best player in football. You yelled at me. So,
yeah. Well, that's where there's giving me a little too much credit for the team's success that I don't understand. I mean, if anybody else had a 78 quarterback rating and threw for 150 yards and an interception, right, they would be thrown down. But instead, they won a game against the Chiefs, and he got the credit. And I want to go for a 64 quarterback rating and 150 yards, no touchdowns and interception, right? I hear the next day, best player on the field, things that you kind of said. And I'm like, wait, are we watching the same game here? That's what I don't understand. Like I said, really good quarterback, no doubt about it. MVP, absolutely not.
PFT with Mike Florio every day on Peacock, the Unbuttoned podcast. I don't know what happened there. And Football Night in America, Sunday Night Football, Eagles and Cowboys. Great game this weekend coming up. Before we get to more football, Sims, does your wife ever respond to those stone texts? Like, does she respond at all?
She, like, at first, like, when I first got into business, she would be like, what? Or what is this? Are you meaning to text me? She knows now. She knows that, yes, it's the easiest place for me to start my text. And then, if I'm on the show the next morning or whatever, I'll be like, man, I got a lot of bullet points. I texted my wife last night. So that's the easiest for me to find. And that's why I've kind of kept that formula going.
You turned your wife into a Post-it note.
Yeah.
It's just a place for you to write your things.
But Mike, I want to turn her into a guest on this show because I want to have her on and I want her to read all the texts that Chris has sent her. And that's it. And then get her the hell out, okay? Can we do that, Sims?
Okay. All right. We'll see. I don't know if she'll do that, but we'll see.
Oh, come on. It'd be so much fun. Just tell her to read the text.
I sent her some last night. I was sending some last night, because I get done watching film too.
Right.
And I watched Tuesday. I literally sit down at my office at 10 o'clock, and I don't think I got up until 6 o'clock last night.
Sure.
Was basically watching 8 hours straight of film. Listen, I might get done with a game, get up, make a soup or whatever, let the dog out for a minute. But for the most part, I'm sitting here grinding away, and that's what I do. So, then the day gets over sometimes, and I've watched so much that thoughts start to come to my head. So, I did text her some last night, like I said, and they work good. I brought one of them up on my PFT show with Mike Florio earlier today.
Give me a sample text you sent to your wife last night.
Okay.
Jay Browning system.
No, I wrote. Here's one of them. I gave her 4 texts last night.
All right.
But my last one would be, Goodell should not be involved in any football decisions. He is a businessman / lawyer. Too many people in the NFL with no football background telling everyone how to play football. And I got an issue with that. And that to me is part of the problem with refereeing right now, because the referees are being told to ref things that are not football, and it's confusing everything. The inconsistency in refereeing around the league, when I talk to my friends, it's the most annoying thing in football right now, but the coaches can't say anything. Right. It's like, hey, this is pass interference. This is pass interference. Oh, no, now it's late in the game, fourth quarter, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Let me rip his head off and hold on to him, and it's not pass interference. Like, it's insane. It's everywhere. This is rubbing the passer. This is rubbing the passer. Oh, and then he gets his head ripped off, and they don't call rubbing the passer, right?
Yeah.
This is unnecessary roughness. This is unnecessary roughness. Oh, wait, he's a foot away from being out of bounds. He gets hit. Unnecessary roughness. Like, it's all over the place. And to me, they need more football people running that department. There is too many people in 345 Park Ave that have never played football, never been taught football, never been around a locker room, and they're telling the rest of the league how to play football and for it to be ref. And it's definitely ruining the sport right now, and it's questioning the integrity of the sport because it's so bad, the reffing, that it seems like the fix is in sometimes, and that's what you continually see on social media. and that's the NFL's own doing. So you asked for that text, and there you got it.
No, it's great, and it's a great take by you, and I agree with everything you said. But if you're confused, if your friends are confused, imagine your poor wife. I mean,
yes.
What is my husband sending me? I want to ask you about the Niners. I want to ask you about the Jets. But before we get to those, put us in the living room. College football playoff is released, and Texas, Chris Sims, Texas gets in. What was the reaction in the Sims household?
I mean, I was at work when it happened. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think we would sneak in. I did not.
Right.
I was really intrigued on how they were going to make this whole thing work. It does seem like, if they were going to put Alabama in, they had to put Texas in because they were opening up a can of worms for every team to be like, what's the point of us ever scheduling a competitive conference type of football game, right?
Yeah, well,
so
Texas,
I think they backed them.
No, but Texas did it against Alabama. So
I know, right? They backed them. Well, I'm saying, and they backed themselves, into a corner a little bit in that conversation there. I mean, Alabama in late September is not nearly the same team they are right now.
Right.
That quarterback is special now. Early in the year, he was like, man, I don't know if he can make it happen. So I don't necessarily love those apples to apples type of things now. Alabama plays Texas right now. That game will be different. Okay. All right. So, I guess two things. I was pumped that we got in. I was also shocked. I also was shocked that Georgia, who hasn't lost a game in 3 years other than 2 games to Alabama.
Sure.
And, they avenged one of them in the national championship. They were in the national championship 3 years in a row. They lost to an all-time powerhouse last weekend, and they don't get in it.
Yeah.
That, to me, doesn't make sense. Yeah.
That's interesting. Wait, so that's interesting. So it's Georgia that you feel bad for. Everyone else feels badly for FSU and their fan base.
Well, what is this? Like, are we playing patty cakes? Are we playing give out the ribbon so we can make – are you kidding me?
Yes.
Florida State with a third-string quarterback is one of the 4 best teams? No, they're not.
Yes.
Get out of here.
I agree.
I know they did a lot of great things. Deserve. What the does deserve mean? We're taking the best 4 teams right now. Florida State had a great year. They play in a basketball conference, first of all. The schedule ain't that daunting. Their big wins were Louisville? What? Louisville lost to Kentucky, Kentucky lost to Georgia 51-13. Louisville lost to Pitt.
Yes.
Pitt was one of the worst teams I saw in college football this year.
They beat LSU.
Those are their quality wins?
LSU, I guess. I mean.
Yeah, LSU, again, early in the year, week 1, where I don't really put a whole lot into that.
Yeah.
Right? So I did not want to see Florida State in.
Agreed.
Right? And then, I go back to what I said to you a little last week. I don't think the Big 12 is very good, so I was shocked Texas got in.
So
the SEC is king. They almost deserve 2 spots every year.
So before everyone in Tallahassee screams at you, I just want to be clear on your take here. You would have been fine with Texas not getting in, even though they beat Alabama, if Georgia got in over Texas. You would have been good with that, right?
I definitely would have. I mean, if you gave me my top 4, it'd have probably been Michigan, Washington, Georgia, then Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State went undefeated and went toe-to-toe with the number 1 team and almost won the game, and they're not even talked about it
on
anymore.
The road.
That's shocking, right?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't Ohio State, then it should be Alabama. So, what I guess I'm saying is Florida State and Texas, to me, should have been 6th and 7th, really.
Sims, the stuff with the Jets is getting super interesting here and annoying if you're a Jet fan. I am wondering, after 4 snaps, does Aaron Rodgers have the right to be disappointed with anyone in the Jets organization?
Yes, he does. He knows what it takes to be a successful organization.
But he doesn't know this organization.
No, he doesn't, but he knows this is no way to succeed, right?
Yes.
I love how he stuck up for Zach Wilson, and he's kind of bringing to light some of the issues with the Jets. I think that's the only way you're going to fix it. Also, within, sticking up for Zach Wilson, he basically admits that the reports about Zach Wilson being reluctant to play are true, right? I mean, if there was a leak and he's worried about leaks, and they don't leak false stuff, they leak true stuff, right?
Yep.
It wasn't made up. So he kind of gave that up. And also, I don't blame Zach Wilson for being reluctant. He should be reluctant.
Agreed.
The Jets have blamed him and thrown him under the bus for everything. And everybody else blames him. I watched Tim Boyle play for 2 weeks. No one's made one point about a bad decision or how he is. Now all of a sudden, well, the team's got lots of problems. And Zach Wilson's in there. It's like, well, he could have thrown it here, but he threw it there. We should probably bench him. He sucks. Like, it's fucking insane. So if I were him, I'd be fucking reluctant to go play for that show too.
Go ahead, Mikey.
All right, Sims. Suppose you had Robert Salah's ear the way Joe Beningo did. What 6-point plan would you give him?
No, hold on.
What 6-point plan would you give him?
Mike, lay out for a second and let Sims comment on Beningo and Salah first.
I'm giving him the whole thing.
No,
Go.
I want Beningo and Salah. Go.
I can't even believe that. I really can't. I just, I'm so shocked by that on so many levels. First off, I don't Joe Beningo's trying to do right by making up for Robert Salah. And, I thought he said this and he meant this and that. And I think he did. I mean, yeah, he's gotten burned because he gave public information that was not supposed to be public. Secondly, I want to go, I can't believe Robert Salah is texting Joe Beningo, period. Like that to me is something that we need to reevaluate altogether.
And apparently listening to him. I mean, what the is happening?
That's where that's the first biggest flaw I've ever seen in Robert Salah's career right there.
Yeah.
Okay?
I
love Joe Beningo. He's the man. He's a great personality. He's not even a full-time WFAN radio host
He
anymore,
retired,
right?
Chris. He retired.
So I'm like, that was also a shock. And it just too many people talking at the Jets. And now you've heard me say that for 2 years. Rookies last year telling everybody about how the organization should be run, second-year players, free agents. They got to lock that down and for lack of a better way saying it, all of them need to shut up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're the czar, if you're Joe Beningo with the ear of Robert Saleh, and you can give him a 6-point plan, do me a favor, fix this team. How you doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got all day, Sims.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The team is not. If you got Aaron Rodgers, he's going to make that offense look good. The first thing is just to get the O-line right. I mean, that's the first thing. The O-line has got to get right. No offense has any chance unless you got an O-line that can protect a little bit and open up some holes. So they're not the best in that department, right? And then, I think they got to evaluate how this offense is going to look and what they want to do with Aaron Rodgers and the formula that they can find successful going forward. I think that's probably the most important thing. And also not let Aaron Rodgers be the GM of the football team either. He just got to play quarterback.
right.
Those would be the first thing I would say. And let alone, yes, try to stop all the guys talking so much behind the scenes to the media and making these big qualifying statements to the media all the time.
Is Rodgers going to fire Salah?
I don't think so, because I would think he wants things to stay status quo, right?
He likes it.
I mean, but what I worry about is things are so bad and the play is so bad and the personal fouls and the penalties and all these stupid things that it might get so bad that Rodgers has got to watch out. He might not have any say in anything.
Right.
The public backlash might be like, oh, it's so bad. Salah, Nate Hackett, they all got to get out of here. And Rodgers, you just got to deal with whoever we hire bringing in. So that's where, I don't want to see that. And, I like a lot of the things about the Jets and their organization. I really like Robert Salah. It just, some of this communicating with the media stuff has really, to me, been some of the biggest flaws in their organization.
Let us both be clear. We love Joe Beningo. I love Joe B. Chris loves Joe B.
Me too.
This is Robert Salah, not Joe Beningo. Like, Salah, what the f*** are you doing? Seriously.
That's what I want to say. And I want to listen. If I heard, I understand, Robert Salah, he probably communicates with a Adam Schefter or Chris Mortensen. Okay, yeah, they're part of the football world. They're on the know. They know stuff that the rest of the NFL, world doesn't know. The public doesn't know. They got information coming out of their ears.
Yes.
I understand conversations with that type of guy, but yeah, I mean,
Beningo,
like you said, I like Joe Beningo, but he doesn't fit that criteria.
On a golf course in Florida, giving Robert Salah advice. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get to the 49ers, Sims, because to your credit, yet again, you told us their best game was better than anyone else's best game. So on Sunday, you must have been sitting there watching that saying, see, I told you so. You felt pretty good. Holy shit, Sims, that team is awesome.
They're awesome. They're awesome. It's the stars have aligned. If they can stay healthy here, they're gonna win the Super Bowl. They are. I really believe that.
Yep.
It's a year with, it doesn't seem like there's an elite team, and they seem like they're the only elite team, through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll see if the Dolphins can become that. The Ravens have shown points of that. We'll see if they can continue it there, right? But I think the biggest thing, early on, the Eagles did have the momentum. They didn't capitalize, right? The field goals, they're only up 6-0. They got the ball again, up 6-0. Good field position. The 49ers defense stopped the 3-and-out. And just a few little easy completions on the next drive kind of got Purdy going. And then the floodgates open. And that's what's amazing about them is, one, they're one of the few teams that can physically just go toe-to-toe with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then two, their skill guys are special, and they have the best head coach in football, and nobody comes up with better scheme plays than Shanahan and what he does. And, you saw that. Just he's got checks and balances and so many ways to make plays look the same that end up being different. And I showed some of that on my podcast today because I talk about tying plays together all the time. And with all those weapons he has, nobody ties plays together better than Shanahan. And, hey, I threw a pass to Deebo Samuel out here. He got 20 yards up the sideline. 2 plays later, we come and do the same formation and the same motion. Deebo goes out there. Your defense saw it. Now they overreact to it. Oh, this time I got George Kittle going on a deep cross. Boom. Same looking play, but it was different. And he knew they'd overreact to Deebo and the success of the play 2 plays earlier. So now he throws it and uses it against them, and a deeper pass. And those are the things I'm talking about. The way he plays, Kittle, McCaffrey, Deebo, and Ayuk and Juszczyk off each other and 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end. But they're so versatile, all those guys. It could be 1 back shotgun, 4 wide receivers. They can do everything, and they really put defenses in a bind because of that.
All right, thanks to Golic and Chris Sims for joining us. If you want to listen on the audio side, Emmitt Smith is there. The picks are there. All the guys making the picks are there. My picks are there. So Austin Eckler as well. A lot of stuff to listen to on the audio side of this episode of God Bless Football. Mikey A., what are you most looking forward to this football weekend? Army-Navy? What do you think?
That's our championship.
I put you in such a bad spot. You can't say no.
Of course. What am I supposed to stay there? You painted me into a corner, but TYFYS, thank you for your service. Yes. Absolutely, Army Navy. And then after that, on Sunday, see how I moved it there? On Sunday, Bills Chiefs followed by Cowboys Eagles. That's from 4 o'clock on. It's just great football.
You don't like the 1 o'clock slate?
The 1 o'clock slate is fine, but I have to watch the Jets. So,
Well, you don't have to watch the Jets.
I do, though. A to Z Sports / New York Jets, find my stuff there. I have to watch the Jets.
I think I'm done watching the Jets this year.
I wish.
I am looking forward to the 1 o'clock slate. I am looking at the I'm intrigued by it. The Ravens game. The Ravens take on the Rams. The Rams have climbed back into contention in the NFC, but every team's in contention in the NFC. There are more teams that have a chance of making the playoffs this late in the season than I can ever remember. It seems like every team is somewhere between 7-5 and 5-7, and all the 5 and 7s have a shot to get in. It's crazy. Crazy.
And then you got the NFC South. And then you got the NFC South, where anybody can win that division except for probably the Panthers.
Well, we actually think, me and Chris Cody, there should be a committee to determine who wins the NFC South. Yes.
We talked about that on Monday on God Bless Football with Chris Cody, and that was probably one of his best ideas ever, that we should have a committee just for that division.
In fact, I would be okay with an NFL playoff committee that determines, right? Because they're keeping track of who's injured. Is Trent Williams going to play? Which quarterback is healthy? Which quarterback isn't healthy? I would not mind an NFL playoff committee, and they have the authority to leave out an entire division. Seriously. I'd be okay with that.
I agree. And at least if not, then you could give like a really, really good wild card team a home game. Like even if you let the NFC South in, give the Cowboys a home game.
Right. But if I tell you, like, Justin Herbert's healthy and the committee could let him in over a team, and let's say, I don't know, Josh Allen's hurt, right? Both teams have the same record. Bills win the tiebreak. The Broncos win the tiebreaker, but the committee says no. Russ is hurt. Allen's healthy. We are taking the Broncos out. We're putting the Bills in. I want a committee. I want to be part of said committee. How about that?
God bless football. That's all.
God bless committees.